All right. I want to go to our colleague who helps us cover a lot of pro football issues. And John Fennelly, when you and I finally see these guys at the pro level, we find out that they don't always live up to the hype that they got in high school and college.
Yeah, that's very true. And, I was watching, Hard Knocks last night, and they were featuring Vernon Golston.
Right.
Now, this guy was a can't miss on a lot of people's boards.
Ours included.
Yeah, and he's in the pros now, and they're trying to find a position for him. They moved him to defensive end, and Rex Ryan is probably mugging for the camera, hoping that somebody will offer him a trade, or offer to trade for him, saying, "Oh, he's great at defense. Oh, he's going to make it."
Right.
Meanwhile, he's getting pushed all over the place. I mean, from what I saw, he wasn't doing very well. I mean, he had a couple of, plays, but he's not going to make it as D, and he didn't make it at linebacker. Now, how did he grade out in high school and college and fall flat on his face in the pros? And there's another guy that's going to do the same thing, in Joe McKnight.
Well, that's a hard nut to crack. I mean, and you could say the same thing for colleges looking at high school kids. I mean, some of them are supposed to be superstars, and, they get to college and they just don't pan out. I mean, that happens all the time, too. Now, you would think in the NFL, by that time, as much as they are graded and analyzed and tested, that, there would be some way of finding that out beforehand. But, I mean, I can think of a particular NFL quarterback that never really panned out, that, was supposedly a sure shot in college, but just never, for one reason or another, never made it there. But talking about the high school level, I mean, college coaches will tell you that, we think that most times that we see 40 times for high school kids are inflated. So that's why we want to have them on our campuses in our own camps so we can actually time them ourselves and the drills that we want them to run. So that's what's important to college coaches, and that's probably why high school kids should try to go in the summer at some point to the one-day mini camps that different college programs run, so that they can kind of, let that college see them up front and get their own times on them. So
what is the biggest? Let me ask you this: what is the biggest piece of culture shock that they experience? Is it the speed of the game? Is it the college experience? Is it the fact that there's 80 guys on each team and they're all good? I mean, what is it? Well, a combination of both?
Yeah, I think you hit a bunch of them. I mean, when you're being recruited, if you are recruited, they are trying to sell. It's like a car salesman almost. Hey, we're the best for you and all this sort of thing. Then when you get there, they'll tell you recruiting's over. Get on those weights. So it's kind of a culture shock that way, where you're being sought and wooed, kind of like it's like a dating process in a sense. They're really trying to, woo you, and then all of a sudden, you're just one of the guys.
You're an indentured servant. You're an indentured servant, right?
Yeah, I mean,
there was a guy that I grew up with. Excuse me, I just want to make this point. He was an all-city quarterback here in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, and he went to, I'm thinking LSU or one of the southern schools. I can't remember. But it was a big program, and they told him, "You're going to be our guy." He got there. He started out fourth on the depth chart.
Yeah, exactly.
They lied to him.
Talk is cheap.
He was back here in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, and that's also, I mean, when you're a freshman coming in, you're going to be redshirted, so you're not going to play, but you still have to go through all the practices, all the summer volunteer work. You're caught up in it without any of the rewards. Now, if you decide that it's worth it to stay through all that, maybe there's a shot that you can actually get on the field during a game as an upperclassman. But that's another thing, though, is that most people, fans like most of us, most people, they see a game on Saturday afternoon, and they think that's great. Boy, they wish they could go out there and play in a football game just like those guys, and what an opportunity those guys have. They don't see that that's just a tip of the iceberg. All the almost year-round effort that those players put in practices and that sort of thing just to play on a Saturday afternoon. So I think that's something that a lot of people miss, and probably a lot of players, 2 when they first go to college. I mean, they don't really realize how much time is involved in being a college football player.
That's true.
Right. I mean, somebody that we associate with who was a kicker at a D1A school and, played at a couple of different professional levels, including briefly in the NFL. And, they told him, listen, you come here, you're here to work for me. You go to class on your own time. You came to college to play football. You came to college to get an education. And sadly enough, not enough guys know what to do for themselves to prepare them for life after football. Ray, I've got one more co-host to get to, and he's from Nashville, Tennessee, and he played some high school football, but he's got a grandson who's playing, upper levels of Pop Warner right now, starting to get serious about the game, and that's our man Ralph Garcia. Ralph, what do you got for Ray tonight?
Ray, hey, welcome to the show. And the one thing I wanted to get on was the parents' side of this. I grew up with Don and Dr. Football, and when I was coming up in the city of New York in the Bronx, it was it was different. As Don said earlier, it was different. Recruiting is a whole lot different, and I'm wondering how these days, nationally first, how parents deal with these kids. I mean, they have so much on their plate already with their regular lives. Then they have to deal with the kids in the sports, and I've done that here. I have 4 of my own here. Mm-hmm. And how it's changed, because when I was up north in the Bronx, football was one way. Then I came down here, and that was about 25 years ago, and I found out, whoa, high school football down here is a whole lot different than it is up north. And how that differs as far as the parents and the involvement of the parents, how you deal with that, with the kid itself and the parents.
And do you mean the variety of sports, or are you just talking about the intensity of football itself?
The intensity. I think he means the intensity, right, Ralph?
Intensity, okay. And well, it's... I don't know. High school football here in Texas is a big thing. I mean, small towns identify themselves by their football teams. I mean, it's a big deal, and that's it takes a life of its own sometimes. And parents and kids, and I think a lot of them do know this, but it's always good to reinforce the thought that football is going to end someday. It's going to end someday,
right,
for everybody. And when it does, you're going to be a relatively young guy. I mean, even if you make it to the pros, you're going to be in your 40s at the most when, there's George Blanda. But
right.
Anybody else, you're going to be in your 40s. Even if you make it in the NFL, some guys make it into their 40s, very few. But they're still, when that ends, when football ends for them, they are still very young men. They've got to know what to do the rest of their lives. And most people, it ends after high school. And even if you make it into college, most of them don't go in the pros, so it ends then when you're 23 or so. So an average pro career is only 3.5 years, so that means you're in your late 20s. So you've got to build the rest of your life. You cannot let football take control of everything. You've got to do well in school. You've got to get a degree. You've got to do those things that matter. I mean, football's a great game. We all love it. I enjoy it, but let's keep it in perspective. I mean, and that, your question is, I think, addressing that. And I think most people do, at a certain time it hits them that, football's going to end, and maybe that's okay. So I hope I answered it. It's a long-worded response, but I hope I got some points in there that answer the question.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Ray, we're just about at the end of the segment, but before I let you tell everybody how they could get a hold of the book, like I said, most of us have played high school, and a couple of guys have played college. I had a long break, for family issues and for service commitment, and like your son, I was a kicker and a punter, and I had that. I thought, until my injury, in the service, I had that opportunity, even at the late age of my late 20s, that I could resume, my college career and possibly get to the NFL by the time I was 30. And, if I could kick a couple of field goals and make a little money until somebody tried to break my ankle in a pile-up, I could do all right in the rest of my life. But, again, like you said, it's going to end, and young men have to be ready for it. talk about the perspective that you got from putting this book together, and what was the consideration? How much research did you do, and how much of it is really, talking with friends of your sons and other parents and other athletes that your son played with, or other research that you've done, talked to through coaches? How long did this take to put together?
Well, when my son first started going through the recruiting process, that was like he graduated from high school in 2008, so a couple of years before that he started going through it. Actually, in the 8th grade, he first started thinking about playing college football, and so we started looking for information on how to do that and what the recruiting process is all about. So I wasn't planning on writing a book back then, but it was a long process of just gathering information, and what I found was that there was not much information, certainly not in one place, that was consistently reliable and authoritative. A lot of half-truths out there, old information, things like that. So over time, just talking to people, talking to friends of my sons who were also being recruited, and talking to parents, and then talking to high school coaches. And when I decided to do the book a year or so ago, I started talking to college coaches. So I tried to catch a lot of those at all different levels, and I also talked to some recruiting consultants, one pretty well known here in Texas, Randy Rogers, and
Sure.
Got a lot of information from him.
Coach Rogers.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and he's well thought of by a lot of college programs. But college coaches were very forthcoming. Nick Uhlenhoff of Western Kentucky, he was a really great source, a young guy, but he really was very good source for me. And so I just put together, talking to all the variety of people, parents and former players, and just a multitude of sources to put this together, and trying to put in one place everything I thought a player and parent needed to know about the recruiting process.
All right. Well, Ray, tell everybody how they could get the book, and I see there's a couple of different ways, but I'm going to let you do that.
Sure. Okay. The name of the book is Beyond Friday Nights. It actually has a longer title, Beyond Friday Nights, College Football Recruiting for Players and Parents. But if you do a search on Beyond Friday Nights on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, you can get it online there. Or you can go to my website for all sorts of links to it. The website is raygrasshoff.com. That's RayGrasshoff.com. Once again, it's RayGrasshoff.com, raygrasshoff.com.
And we'll post that in the links. We'll post that in the links.
Okay, great. But it's, like I said, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other online sources. So it should be easy to get, and it's been very well received by quite a few people. So I'm happy about that.
Ray, we really appreciate you coming on with us tonight. Thanks so much. It's an informative look. It's not something we don't know about or haven't talked about, but obviously it's a lot more sources than we even thought existed. And this is something we follow very closely. And it's too bad I had two more co-hosts, three in fact, that couldn't make it tonight, that are on the rotation, couldn't make it in for your segment, but they're all also aware of the process, of going through the process at different levels. One with a son and another one who calls high school football games as part of his living. And I would have loved for them to get an opportunity to ask you questions as well. Let us know in a year or so how things have gone, and if you update any of the chapters, we'd love to have you back in the future.
Sure. I'd be very happy to do that, and thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it and enjoy talking to all of you.
All right, thanks so much. And Ray, anytime you need to reach out to me to ask me for something, you got my number. Just give me a shout.
All right, appreciate that.
Okay,
thank you very much.
You
too.
Ray Grasshoff, the author of Beyond Friday Nights, College Football Recruiting for Players and Parents, and we really appreciate him visiting with us tonight. And it's a little past the break. It's 9:34, headed up for 9:35 on the eastern seaboard of the United States right now. You're listening to the most compelling football talk on the Internet, Football Reporters Online, every Thursday night from 9 to 11 Eastern.